Hey there guys, how are we doing? Welcome back to my channel, Boomy Reactions. For those of you who are new, my name's Boomy and thank you for watching. Now today guys, because y'all loved that Randy Integrity Farms video so much, we have a follow on from the same channel. So this is from the channel Johnny Two Cellos. I'm not going to ask about the name. And this video is called The Tragic Loss of Chef. And it's been requested by one of my lovely patrons. This is from Jeb. Thank you, my lovely. Now, Jeb says, since you enjoyed the No Integrity video and you were asking about what had happened to Chef on South Park, I'd recommend The Tragic Loss of Chef. So, yes, I did say at some point in that last episode, yeah, what happened to Chef? I have noticed he was almost in every episode, like more or less, wasn't he, to begin with? And I'm seeing an awful lot less of him these days. So, was there a plot line? What happened to him? Where did he go? I haven't seen it. And now a few of you in the comments let me know that the actor, the voice actor, became like involved in Scientology. Now, I can imagine, I have seen the Scientology episodes quite a while ago. But yeah, Matt and Trey seem like, you know, this is kind of fair game to make fun of. So I can't imagine that going down very well. Has it got anything to do with that episode? Or was that why they went in for it? I don't know. Hopefully they'll tell us in the video. Maybe it's got something to do with it. Interesting. And guys, if you're enjoying these reactions, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much, my lovelies. If you're interested, I have a Buy Me Coffee account. That link is over here. And if you would like to help support my channel any further, I have a Patreon account. And if you want to check that out at all, that link is in the description just below there. Right, okay. The tragic loss of Chef.
When thinking about South Park's most iconic characters, it feels kind of bizarre to realize that one of the most iconic hasn't been on the show in 18 years. While South Park made a huge splash with its irreverent humor, vulgarity, and cheap animation, back in its early days, there were few characters more beloved than Isaac Hayes' Chef. The soul-singing mentor to the main four boys, Chef was effectively the primary adult character in the show, and
with the chocolate salty covered balls, yeah. Well,
the series' voice of reason for a lot of its early run. That is, until a much publicized and contentious exit from the show in 2006 after South Park lampooned Scientology. Despite this messy end for Chef and later revelations about the nature of his exit, Chef is still one of the most important characters in the show's history. And while they've managed to find new characters to elevate and new kinds of stories to tell, I think Chef has left an undeniable hole in the series that will never quite be filled. So
just took the words straight out of my mouth. I was just going to say, yes, you know, there might be a few more characters added, but I don't feel like they could take the place of Chef. There is very much a hole there, isn't there? Oh, I can't believe I haven't noticed that he's actually been missing from the show for that length of time. Okay, that's a long time. So, did the actor leave because of the Scientology episode, or was it kind of parallel? Did it happen around the same time? Was the episode in response to the... Let's see.
Today, let's look at one of South Park's most beloved characters and explore the tragic loss of Chef. And hey, while you're here, maybe consider subscribing. I cover lots of South Park topics as well as other adult animated shows, so check it out if you're interested.
Hello there, children!
For such an iconic character, Chef's conception has a pretty wild college origin story from Matt and Trey, and the way Isaac Hayes joined the show is also very funny. But rather than just recount everything myself, I'll mostly let Matt, Trey, and Isaac talk about it.
When we were in college, we tripped on acid, and we went walking around, and after we skipped school, we tripped on acid, and we started talking like Chef.
So this classic...
That's the origin. Tripping out and then just started talking like Chef.
Character idea stemmed entirely from Matt and Trey doing a bit they came up with while tripping. But this kernel of an idea endured because once South Park was in the works, in their minds, it was always a part of the concept.
We knew we wanted Chef all along. He was a character we talked about even in college to put in these things. And Isaac Hayes was our first choice.
We wanted the 70s like soul brother kind of guy. And Isaac
We just
was
got
the
this
fir-
call and it was like, Isaac said he'd do it.
Yeah,
We're
it's like-
again, we're just in this little tiny closet going, really?
And as I mentioned, the story of Isaac first jumping in and joining the production is very funny, because basically nobody was operating with the amount of information they should have been operating with. Firstly, Isaac didn't really know what the project even was.
I was suspicious because my agent didn't really tell me what was going on.
Secondly, Matt and Trey didn't know that Isaac hadn't been briefed about what the project even was.
And Isaac walks in and he's like, hey guys, what are we doing here?
They had no idea what we were doing.
They didn't tell you what this was? He's like, no, what is this? We're like, oh, shit. And I remember I seriously grabbed Matt and I take him outside. I was like, dude, he's gonna kick our asses.
And then suddenly these dudes who had just gotten their own show and were in a little over their heads had to pitch their vulgar cardboard cutout cartoon to a legendary Oscar and Grammy winning singer.
We had to explain it to him and then he just totally embraced it. And you know, within 2 or 3 minutes he was singing the song and it was, he just basically is Chef, so it was perfect.
So from a college bit to an idea for the pilot to a successful pitch to the legend Isaac Hayes himself, Chef's journey to South Park is kind of a miracle. And though they had a pretty specific idea and joke in mind for Chef when the show began, the character quickly evolved into a bigger, more important part of the show than I think any of them ever expected.
It's this heartwarming advice. That's the best part about Chef. Oh, and the singing, the songs. I think he lowers his voice a little bit, doesn't he, for the voice of Chef. That's kind of amazing that that actually worked out. You'd naturally assume once it was explained, you would have just thought, why am I here? What a waste of time. You got me all this way for this. You didn't even explain to me what it is. No, so chill, just totally embraced it. Go along with it. I don't think anyone else would have made that character just as lovable as he is.
Do you feel better?
That's it, it's his advice.
South Park Season 1 was sort of written in a couple of chunks. They did the initial pilot, then they were picked up for 5 more episodes. And once that was a success, the show got a back order of 7 more to round out Season 1. But those original 6 episodes really represent what that initial idea for Chef sort of was, which, with no disrespect, was a little one note.
You're the only black in this country and you're a total stereotype.
Yeah, you're a total stereotype. And you're a chef and you sing love songs all the time. Kind of like you do, Isaac, all the time, you know. And he's like, all right, that's cool.
So Chef is this mentor character, but the
Even that impression of Chef's voice is funny.
the gag is when it gets to the part of the story where he's going to help teach the lesson or explain the important piece of missing information to the children, he actually just sings an
Breaks out to
often
song.
inappropriate love song.
It's so funny with this guy. He's talking about something and he equated with sexual fantasies.
And for this first
That's it. It's like, it doesn't really matter what the situation is. he explains it through song, but it always takes a very sordid kind of turn.
chunk of the season in particular,
makes
this
it
is
work.
basically the main formula, which was funny, but it was just the same gag over and over.
It never gets
Obviously,
old.
this starts in the pilot when the kids ask Chef for advice when Ike gets kidnapped by aliens.
I'm gonna make love to you, woman.
In the second episode, he's
And all the songs are kind of similar.
supposed to sing a song to honor Kathy Lee when she comes to town, but instead he uses it as a chance to woo her,
Kathy Lee,
Of course he does.
you're my sexual fantasy.
which works, by the way. In the third episode,
She loves it. I saw this scene and now I'm looking back at it. It makes me question, is that Wendy's mum? It's not, but she looks similar. It could have been.
he sings a themed song after they survive the volcano eruption.
Baby, every time that we kiss, hot lava.
You get the idea. It was pretty funny at first, but it starts to become a little tiresome.
No,
and
it
Matt and Trey
doesn't.
kind of felt the same way.
We kind of stopped,
Keep it
and
going.
people were like, "Hey, you know, we wanted Chef to do a song in every show." And I was like, "Well, you know, we kind of have done that joke to death."
But though this
Maybe
was
not
the
every
primary
episode.
gag, as the show found its footing over season 1, Chef started to find a more important role in the show. Basically, the only functional adult in town. Even
Yeah, every time there's like, I don't know, like they need a different role from an adult. Chef takes the role. Football coach. I was going to say counselor, but that's Mr. Mackey, isn't it?
Early in the show, most of the adults in South Park were complete idiots. And honestly, in these
They
first
still
6
are.
episodes, we see hints that Chef was maybe a little bit more trustworthy. Like in Volcano, when their old informational video about how to survive volcanoes says they need to duck and cover.
That
Look
has
like it.
got to be the most ridiculous load of pig crap I have ever seen.
I mean, this is a low bar, but still. The first episode after this initial order really started to establish how Chef stands apart from the rest of the town. This was the Halloween episode Pink Eye, which has the town being overrun by like an incredibly obvious zombie outbreak. But everyone seems to just think it's Pink Eye. Everyone except for Chef.
This ain't no pink eye. It's the living dead.
So at this point, particularly when so few of the adult characters had been fleshed out, Chef is kind of the only sane or competent one in town.
You know, Chef's actually starting to. He's the only one in town that really always knows what's actually going on.
And this
Yeah,
was definitely
got the
the
most
role he
common
started to
sense.
fill more and more. In Starvin' Marvin, he leads the town army with a Braveheart speech to try and take out the turkeys. He's the only one who actually knows Mr. Hanky is real in their first Christmas special.
Howdy ho, Mr. Hanky.
Though he's known for giving advice to the children, he knows exactly when he shouldn't.
Yeah, like assisted suicide. What about that?
I don't want to touch that with a 40-foot pole.
He just quickly starts to become the only real trustworthy adult character with substance in this early era of the show, except for maybe Jesus, who Chef reluctantly spars with to train him for his fight with Satan.
But I'm just going to tap you, all right?
Give it your best shot. Oh!
Yeah.
Oh, God in heaven, what have I done?
But I think that the
Just punch Jesus. Jesus is a pretty, glued up character, like Chef. One of the few adult characters that actually does have a brain.
whole only trustworthy adult in South Park thing ties into the other major aspect of Chef that does become important.
He's the voice of reason in the whole town.
Yeah.
And he mentors these kids and they love him.
He fully
Pearls of
becomes that
wisdom.
voice of reason, like Isaac said, but he's also the one character who really cares about the boys and doesn't constantly put them in danger, even above their own families. In Volcano, when the seismic activity begins, he's the one character who knows that the boys are in danger.
Some of the school children are up camping on that mountain right now.
This is particularly funny because the person who tells the mayor that the volcano is active in the first
Randy.
place is Randy. I think there's a good chance that this was actually before they had assigned this character to be Stan's dad, but it is so funny looking back that Chef is the one who knows Stan is in trouble and Randy has very little insight into his son's whereabouts. Although it may
I mean, that kind of just feeds into Randy's character or, parenting skills. I think it'd be the same.
be fits his current characterization, so kind of works. The other episode that really shows off Chef's South Park role as the sane adult and mentor is Mecha Streisand. Leonard Maltin drags Chef all around South Park so they can prevent Babs from getting the Triangle of Zinthar and protect the boys. I mean, Babs literally chained the boys up and Chef and Maltin had to rescue them, before calling Robert Smith of The Cure, of course.
Leonard Maltin asked me to call you.
Oh, so Barbara Streisand's found the other triangle, eh?
Chef's evolution, even over just this first season, is pretty fascinating. His entire character was conceptualized as an admitted stereotype with one real joke to play over and over, but by the end of the season, it's very clear that not only is he the most reliable
the
adult
joke.
in town, but he really wants to protect the boys and takes his role as their mentor very seriously. Honestly, the season finale manages a wildly impressive feat as well. This is the one where Cartman is trying to figure out who his father is, and at one point believes it to be Chef. For one, it's very funny when Chef is just instantly fed up with Cartman's foolishness.
Yo, Pops.
Boy, what the fudge are you doing?
But Chef actually does sing one of his classic love songs in this one, but hilariously, this time it's genuinely helpful advice for Cartman.
Women don't get pregnant from tongue kissing children.
The entire season,
There is no, I have no shadow of a doubt that Cartman's mum has had a fling with Chef. No shadow of a doubt.
Chef sings these non sequitur love songs, and here in the final episode of season 1, singing a song about making love is actually the piece of information Cartman needed to better understand the mystery father situation. Kind of an amazing trick they pulled and a great way to wrap up his love songs bit for season 1. But I think the most important thing was that Chef sort of graduated from that one-note character he was conceived as and slowly fell into this very important role over the course of season 1. And while they were definitely still aspects of his early characterization throughout season 2, this was also the period of time when Chef was elevated culturally and became a bit of a sensation.
Yeah, his character is definitely fleshed out
I
over
call
the
them Chef's salty chocolate balls.
When South Park started, the fact that they got Isaac Hayes at all was sort of this hilarious, amazing feat. Like, wow, really? That show got the Isaac Hayes? But by season 2, the show had become such a massive success that Chef as a character had nearly surpassed the cultural recognition of Isaac Hayes himself.
These kids don't know me as Isaac Hayes, the composer, the arranger, the writer, and the actor, and all that kind of stuff. He's Chef. Now people think
I don't want to agree with that, but as a youngster, yeah, I knew Mr. Hayes' Chef and did not know him for his career or his music. It was Chef.
I'm Chef every time I open my mouth.
Yeah.
Come on now, children!
Honestly, the way that South Park embraced Hayes and Hayes embraced South Park was kind of heartwarming, and it really helped elevate both in the zeitgeist. And I think nothing represents this better than Chef's chocolate salty balls.
I remember when we first introduced chocolate salty balls to me, I said, guys, now you guys have gone all the way over the top. Now come on, you expect me to do this? And I was laughing. It took me a while to compose myself.
Ironically, the episode with this title is barely even about what the title suggests it is. Chef's food business is arguably the C story of the episode.
Yeah, it's not even the main storyline. I am pretty sure, if I remember, I'm sure I have heard this song on the radio like a few times. Was it actually released as like a hit?
Look, one of the natives is selling local food wares. How quaint.
This is actually a story that completely lambasts the Sundance Film Festival, and it features the return of Mr. Hanky. But Chef's innuendo was so hilariously overt, obvious, and outrageous that it completely overshadowed the rest of the episode, at least in the cultural zeitgeist.
I call them Chef's salty chocolate balls.
And I just want to make it super clear to everyone watching, especially anyone at YouTube, that this is a song about eating food.
Actually about
just look at the footage.
chocolate.
These are literal chocolate confectionaries, and that is it.
And if there's a innuendo or a pun there, it's entirely coincidental. It is actually about chocolate.
Everybody haven't seen my balls. They're big and salty and brown.
But let me tell you, saying that Chef's chocolate salty balls took the world by storm would be an understatement.
Yeah.
They recorded the song for the Chef 8 album in 1998,
Yes.
and no joke, that song peaked at #1 on both the UK and Irish charts.
Told you. Yep. It was there. I remember hearing, I think it was over Christmas time. I think, memory's a bit rusty. I'm sure it was, I don't think it was a Christmas #1. Maybe it was, but this was everywhere. Everyone knew it. Young children knew the lyrics. But yeah, hilarious.
By the year 2000, Isaac Hayes was a guest on Conan O'Brien, where the pair literally cooked chocolate salty balls while Isaac sang the song.
Stick 'em in your mouth and suck 'em.
I mean, can it get bigger than that? Actually, it can, because in 2002, he performed the song at the Glastonbury Festival to a crowd this size. Needless to say, Chef became intrinsically tied to Isaac, one of the biggest and most recognizable accomplishments in his entire career, and it introduced him to entirely new generations. And Isaac was an unquestionably massive part of South Park's success, and early on it could have been argued that he was the most popular character. He got an entire video game called Chef's Love Shack in 1999 that released on Dreamcast, PlayStation, and N64. Granted, that game was just glorified trivia, but it was still entirely marketed on Chef's name. The following year, they released an entire DVD called The Chef Experience with a few of his most popular episodes. Obviously, the show would continue to grow and evolve, and it found new identity outside of these early seasons. Infamously, Matt and Trey aren't even fans of some of this early stuff. They refused to even do commentary for their season 2 DVD release. But Chef was inextricably tied to the rise and success of early South Park. And the fact that Hayes so openly and excitedly embraced Chef and South Park makes their eventual split all the more tragic. But
oh, it does make it sadder, doesn't it? I was going to say, it's kind of awesome that he did just embrace South Park for what it is.
we'll get there.
Oh, Chef the man.
Chef is really
Chef, You mean chef?
As South Park moved from seasons 1 through 2, Chef's initial role definitely evolved, and over the course of seasons 2 through 9, we saw more and more episodes that explored Chef as an actual character, diving into his backstory, his family, his motivations, treating him as more than the one-note stereotype he started off as. In the earlier seasons, they even used Chef as a stand-in for other roles and positions, since their adult cast was more limited. So in season 1, he's briefly shown to be the football coach, and then in season 2's conjoined fetus lady, he's the PE teacher as well. This is one of the earliest examples of the show exploring Chef's own shortcomings seeping in, as he drives the kids a little too hard playing dodgeball.
Great news! We've been asked to play in the state finals for dodgeball.
Even though most of the kids don't really want to play dodgeball, Chef makes them continue their journey to face off against the national team and then the Chinese national team.
Okay, children, now we're almost to China. I want you all to try and focus on your game.
But Chef, we don't want to play the Chinese.
Nonsense!
Even though Pip's untamed rage actually ends up winning them the match, after seeing how many kids have been injured and are miserable, Chef realizes that he wasn't really thinking about their desires or their well-being throughout this entire ordeal.
I just realized something. I've been obsessed, and obsession isn't good.
And I think this...
Being British, I naturally love Pip. But I feel like Pip's disappeared as well. What happened to Pip? I know I have very many questions. I do. I have a lot of questions every video. Like, what happened to Pip? I thought he was like an early kind of blueprint for Butters. But we just saw them at the same time, didn't we? Butters is there. So they're not the same kind of character. I know they're not actually the same person. But I miss hearing his really over-the-top, little high-pitched British voice.
Started to land Chef a bit more nuance. The show actually afforded him some shortcomings and mistakes that he had to acknowledge and atone for, rather than just being the pitch-perfect, soulful singing hype man for the boys. And they continue to give Chef stuff to do outside of those relationships as well, like in the aforementioned Chef's Chocolate Salty Balls. Obviously, we talked about how big of a sensation the song became, but even contextually in that episode, it showed some of Chef's goals outside of his job and outside of the women he loves to sing about.
Now I'm going to sell some of my famous cookies to these Hollywood types and make them mint.
Granted, he ultimately regretted how he went about this, feeling as though he contributed to the way South Park was overrun by the Hollywood yuppies.
It's all gone to hell, children, and we're all to blame. Even me. I was selling out my town too.
But this episode also reiterated that Chef had a prior friendship with Mr. Hanky and that these friendships are important to him. He and Kyle were the only ones who went to the hospital to say goodbye to Mr. Hanky when he was dying, and miraculously Chef's Chocolate Salty Balls saved Mr. Hanky's life. But the episode that really showcases Chef's amazing ability to form friendships and have real impact on people's lives is Chef Aid. In this one, Chef reveals an amazing truth about Alanis Morissette's new hit single, Stinky Britches.
Children, I wrote that song 20 years ago.
You wrote it?
Yeah. Back when I used to be in the rock business.
Honestly, Chef's initial attitude here really reveals how admirable he is. Though he likely should have been owed a ton of money for this song, he didn't want the payday.
Oh, I don't want any money. I'd just like to see my name on the credits, that's all.
Which makes it that much more obnoxious when the record company sued Chef, leading him to owe $2 million and 4 years of jail time if he can't pay it. This episode really shows how humble Chef is. It's revealed that he actually had brief friendships with tons of huge musicians over the years, Janis Joplin, the Beatles, Elton John, many more.
Oh, they wouldn't remember me. All I did was cook for them.
And I love this aspect of the episode because it really reinforces that Chef wasn't looking for anything major outside of his owed recognition. He isn't chasing fame, because if he was, he'd have taken more credit in his relationship with these megastars, especially after it's revealed how big of an impact he actually did have on them.
Our friend Chef is really...
Chef? You mean Chef?
Yeah, dude. Well, you remember him?
Of course.
As it turns out, Chef gave Elton John the exact advice he needed to take his songs and persona to the next level. He got Meatloaf to drop the name Couscous, which helped him take off. And then there was this timeless advice he gave Ozzy Osbourne.
I remember when I was just starting out, Chef suggested I buy a pompadour hat. Are they
actually voiced by them? They're not, are they? They totally should be. And if they're not, they sound very, very convincing. Oh my gosh, couscous. I wonder if this, do you think it kind of hits a nerve with Isaac? Do you think that there was like a real life story and it was written into these episodes?
Thought he said, bite the head off a bat.
Because of all of the prior advice and mentorship that Chef gave all of these people who made it big, they were all willing to come together for Chef Aid to raise him money to fight the record company. Rancid, Primus, Elton John, the list goes on. It's a huge success, and he's able to counter-sue the record company. And Chef still doesn't forget who it was who went out of their way to help make this happen for him.
I just can't find the words to thank all the artists who put on Chef Aid. Most of all, I want to thank the children.
This episode really illustrates what kind of a man Chef is, though it does also highlight his mentorship abilities and how far those get him, but we'll touch on that even more later. This wouldn't be the last time that the children try to save Chef from a terrible fate either. In season 3's The Succubus, Chef ends up falling in love with the woman who the boys are convinced is wrong for him, which is hard to deny when you hear this.
If we can hold on to the night,
we have a chance to find the sunshine.
Granted,
oh no, that's not genuine, Chef. He's not his authentic self. Succubus.
a lot of the boys' motivations here were purely selfish jealousy because they lost their friend, but that does feel pretty important. If there's one thing we know about Chef, it's that his mentorship to the boys is incredibly important to him, and pretty quickly he starts to forget about them entirely.
All right, mister, you better have a good explanation why you didn't show up to play ball.
Oh, children, I'm sorry. I forgot.
Now, despite this stemming from a bit of jealousy, the boys actually turned out to be 100% correct. Veronica was a succubus demon, and the boys saved Chef from a horrible fate. Honestly, it's hard to imagine the boys caring about one of the other adults in South Park this much at any other point in the show, and I think it goes a long way to show how important this relationship with Chef was to them. This episode and others around this time also start giving more insight into Chef's childhood and family. Both of his parents come to town for the wedding, and they're incredibly kind and loving people. They also have one really specific hyperfixation.
Say, would you crackers like to hear about the time we saw the Loch Ness Monster?
They are absolutely convinced that the Loch Ness Monster is continually tracking them down and trying to get tree fitty. Countless stories of that damn monster just trying to get money out of them.
Well, it was about that time that I noticed this Girl Scout was about 8 stories tall and was a crustacean from the Pleiadiocare.
In fact, we later see in The Biggest Douche in the Universe that Chef's parents literally live in Scotland.
Well, come on in out of the cold now. There's heavy fog on the moors tonight.
This raises pretty interesting questions about Chef's childhood and whether or not he was raised in Edinburgh or if he and his parents moved there later in life. Much of what we see of Chef's earlier life and even childhood seems to take place in the United States. At least we can assume from the accents in this flashback.
Come on, kid, don't you want to get high?
Hey, man, I don't need dope. Let me sing you a little song.
However, his actual name is Jerome McElroy, and McElroy could suggest Celtic descent. Regardless, Chef seems to have had a good upbringing. He was also featured in the South Park movie, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, where he gets drafted into the U.S. Army for the Canadian-American War of 1999, and is put front and center for the awful and wildly racist Operation Human Shield tactic.
Yes, soldier.
Have you ever heard of the Emancipation Proclamation?
I don't listen to hip-hop.
Chef actually takes the initiative and saves all of his squad mates from being used as pawns by the U.S. military here.
Great plan, Chef! Operation Human Shield my ass!
They even give Chef the opening of the final song celebrating the happy ending of Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, and it's hard to imagine a better character to use to end the movie like this.
Right.
What a happy end! Americans and Canadians are friends again.
But Bigger, Longer, and Uncut wasn't Chef's only brush with racism in South Park, and as in the movie, Chef was often outspoken about these issues. Though the first instance is mostly a misunderstanding when the town is covered in ash, but I mean, it's kind of hard to blame him here.
Okay, everybody get in a line so I can whoop all your ass.
But the episode that really puts a focus on the issues Chef faces as one of the only black dudes in South Park is Chef Goes Nanners, where Chef protests the obviously racist South Park flag, which pits him against his friends, the boys, and most people in town.
You tell me what exactly you find racist about it.
And obviously feeling like your entire town is against you has got to be a huge strain. He's genuinely and truly hurt by nobody seeming to have his back and prioritizing the history of an obviously disgusting flag over him.
I never thought I'd live to see this many of the people I considered friends turn against me.
But, Chef, we don't know what you're talking about.
What nothing.
But Chef didn't realize that these kids weren't just cool with something horrible being depicted on the flag. They were actually just fully ignorant to what it was the flag was depicting. They thought that the issue Chef had was that it portrayed killing, not that it portrayed something horrifically racist.
All this time I thought these little crackers had turned racist, when actually they were so not racist that they didn't even make a separation of black and white to begin with.
I was going to say, doesn't it actually represent that they didn't see any colour distinguish?
Honestly, while this
I get it.
resolution is maybe a little old school in that, oh, I don't see color type of way, I do
Yeah.
think on a personal level it's really sweet, leading Chef to realize that he maybe shouldn't have thought the worst of the boys, and that he should have known how important he is to them as a friend and mentor. And though the show started to provide more robust storylines and more thorough backstory and lore for Chef, that aforementioned role as friend and mentor definitely remained the most important role Chef held in the series.
Hey, Chef.
How you doing?
Bad.
Why bad?
Though over seasons 1 and 2, Chef evolved from a more one-note character into the reliable voice of reason and mentor for the kids, this evolution came with a real change in screen time. While he did get more dedicated episodes and storylines, Chef's overall episode count began to decrease pretty consistently and substantially. However, Chef's primary role in the show definitely remained as mentor to the kids, and so in plenty of episodes he shows up for just a scene or two to give advice or teach the boys something new. And that's because, as we've established, Chef is the only real adult in South Park who knows what's going on.
And a
What
fan
makes you think I
favorite.
would know anything about that?
I don't know, you're just the only grown-up we trust.
In fact, in a flashback in the episode
Chicken box.
Preschool, we see that Chef was even working at the school way back then, implying that Chef has known these kids for damn near all of their lives. So we
Look how tiny they are.
know that their connection is important. Chef is such a consistent guide in the boys' lives that there are almost too many instances of his timely advice to go over all of them, but we're gonna try. He teaches the boys what a bris is and Ike's wee wee, but just before that, he gives them genuinely good advice when he thinks the kids might be trying drugs.
There's a time and a place for everything, and it's called
College.
Hilariously, the boys remembered this advice word for word 2 full seasons later when Chef thought they might be dealing drugs.
What have I told you about drugs?
That there's a time and a place for everything, and it's called college.
This is obviously just a fun callback, but it's also pretty direct proof that the boys don't just listen to Chef's advice and appreciate his mentorship, they fully retain the things he teaches them. Chef's advice tends to be divided into a few categories. One is like this piece of drug advice here, where Chef is trying to protect the children from something dangerous. Another common category is when Chef is genuinely trying to help them socially, like when he's teaching Stan how Truth or Dare works. And he isn't just telling him the rules, he's trying to explain the psychology behind it and how best to position himself when playing.
Then after a few truths, you finally answer dare.
Dare.
But not like that, son. Like this. Dare.
But the other category
Oh my gosh, it's not just the kids that retain those pearls of wisdom that Chef shares with the boys. I've even remembered it. See? There's a time and a place for things like this. It's called college.
is when he teaches the kids about some important aspect of life that they are generally too young to know anything about yet, like in the movie.
Chef, how do you make a woman like you more than any other guy?
Oh, that's easy. You just gotta find the clip.
Okay, I don't think I can actually finish that clip. And to be fair, Chef regretted letting this one slip pretty much immediately.
Forget I said anything. Move along, children. You're holding up the line.
This is obviously a bit more in line with his season 1 persona, where he would just sing about making love as the solution to any problem. But there are a handful of instances where the kids ask Chef about these aspects of life. And ironically, despite having often taught them, later in the series when the school system panics and starts teaching sex ed to younger and younger kids, Chef is actually the one who tries to tell everyone that this should be the responsibility of the parents and that they shouldn't be learning these things that young.
Do you really want your children learning about sex? Part of the fun of being a kid is being naive. Let them be kids for a while.
This is, of course, falling into the category of Chef showing genuine concern and trying to protect the kids, which again is pretty funny given his entire gimmick in the first season. This is a pretty solid example of Chef's early characterization clashing with the character he would evolve into. Of course, there are examples where the kids ask him about super adult things and he doesn't give them any advice at all.
Hello there, children.
Chef, what would a priest want to stick up my butt?
Goodbye.
Another example of Chef worrying about
Gotta carry on walking, not touching that with a 40-foot barge pole.
the kids' well-being is in Timmy 2000 when
Which is not
everybody
the
starts
answer.
taking Ritalin.
Damn it, children, you don't need drugs to make you pay attention in school.
Though he also tries to tell the parents that they just need to hit the children, so while the sentiment of trying to keep the kids off stimulants isn't a bad one, I'm not so sure about his POV for the solution here. Sometimes Chef's advice comes just a tiny bit too late, like in Good Times with Weapons.
Well, you children should be careful with those. You could put somebody's eye out.
Yeah, we know.
In addition to just giving them
Animation.
advice, Chef is often there to help the boys in their most dire circumstances, like in It Hits the Fan, when the overuse of the word shit on TV starts to bring about a new plague. Chef travels all around the country with the boys, doing research, figuring out what's going on, and trying to get the TV networks to stop saying the word shit. And they literally stop an apocalyptic event. But as the show goes on, I think Chef's mentorship evolves into a more deeply protective role. And I think this really starts with the season 5 tearjerker Kenny Dies. You know, the episode where Kenny really dies. But I think it's incredibly telling that Chef is there with the parents, principal, and guidance counselor conveying this heartbreaking news to Stan and Kyle.
Kenny's sick? Well, how sick?
Children, Kenny has been diagnosed with a terminal disease.
Chef is one of the only people outside of the boys seen at the hospital visiting Kenny when he's dying, and even sits down with Stan as he struggles to understand and process what's happening. Granted, Chef also conveys a pretty bleak take on life and God.
You see, it's our tears, Stan, that give God his great power.
But I still think the fact that Chef is the person having these tough conversations with the boys is really meaningful.
Yeah.
And through the rest of Chef's tenure on South Park, we see his protective nature towards the boys hit even greater levels. Maybe the most insane example being in Simpsons Already Did It. He has this initially very funny reaction to when the boys tell him they think they killed their teacher. But shortly after this, he actually tries to help them flee the country.
All right, children, I got you 4 tickets to Thailand and $300 cash.
Of course, this all ended up being a pretty funny misunderstanding, and the kids obviously had nothing to do with Miss Chokes-on-Dick's death.
Oh, children, you misunderstood. See people is different from see men.
It does seem like at this point, Chef would do anything to help these kids.
Well, there's the character that I don't think I've seen that much of. Miss Chokes-on-Dick. Is she the one with the really saggy boobies? I have no idea who she is, but she's dead. Okay.
He even takes Cartman to Scotland to separate Kenny's soul from his body, attempting to help both boys at the same time. Unfortunately, Kenny's soul ends up in a pot roast, but Chef still went above and beyond here. In the episode Cancelled, Chef tries desperately to protect the boys from the visitors, escaping them in a high-speed car chase, though unfortunately, again, he gets a little pompous about his evasion skills, and then the kids get abducted anyways. Chef even watches over and guides the boys through a traumatic event in You Got F'd in the A.
Chef, we just got served.
Oh boy. Well, come on inside, children. I'll make you some cocoa.
This is actually a pretty great example of Chef showing concern for and attempting to guide the kids through something that they don't understand. He is full-on panicked when Stan dances back at these kids.
Cause if you get served and serve them back, then it's on. Don't you know anything?
But he genuinely coaches Stan through the entire thing and helps him find the right team for the dance-off. In some ways, Isaac Hayes' final actual appearance as Chef is pretty fitting. It even
That little girl twerking.
reveals some new info about him that we didn't know, like the fact that he's in charge of public safety on the South Park Town Council. But this episode is a full-on parody of the movie The Core, and so Cartman is pretty insistent on using some of its racist tropes when forming the team to try and break through and stop the hippies.
All right, then we just need a black person who can sacrifice himself in case something goes wrong. Let's see, anyone will do. Anyone who meets the qualifications.
Now, despite the
Chef is
reason
the only
Chef is
black
on the
person
team,
in
I do
South
think that
Park.
Chef being willing to sacrifice himself to protect the town and the children is a very Chef thing to do. It's just a shame that this would be Hayes' final appearance at all, because a character like Chef deserves a real celebratory send-off. And sadly, because of what went down next, his send-off would be bittersweet to say the least.
Here we are. We've arrived. The return of Chef.
We love you.
On November 16th, 2005, South Park aired the episode Trapped in the Closet, an unapologetic takedown of Scientology and some of the more ridiculous beliefs held in the higher tiers of the quote-unquote religion. Obviously, this episode made huge waves for its depiction of Tom Cruise and its relentless skewering of some of these beliefs, but it also made waves within South Park. Matt and Trey definitely knew ahead of time that this might cause friction with Isaac Hayes, who was a Scientologist. As you may know, Scientology has a real substantial reputation for being litigious towards its critics and having a tight grip on its community members, and it sounds like they had definitely deployed Isaac to try and get Matt and Trey to back down before quitting the show. But even with all that happening, it doesn't sound like there was all that much animosity between Isaac or Matt and Trey.
You know, Isaac had quit and we understood that, and we actually all left on really good terms, and he was like, I'm a Scientologist and I want you to pull that episode, and we were like, well, no, we're not going to do that because we don't do that. His lawyer said he's resigning, and we're like, okay, you know what, we understand. We knew that was a risk when we did it, but we had to do it, and so, you know, it's been great, and see you. Love love you.
So largely through his representation, Isaac had already quit the show, but seemingly on good terms with Matt and Trey. And that following January, Isaac had even talked a bit about the controversy in an AV Club interview, expressing disappointment in Matt and Trey's POV, but certainly not expressing any serious hate or ill will towards them. When asked about how he felt about the Scientology episode, he said this: "Well, I talked to Matt and Trey about that. They didn't let me know until it was done. I said, guys, you have it all wrong. We're not like that. I know that's your thing, but get your information correct, because somebody might believe that shit, you know? But I understand what they're doing. I told them to take a couple of Scientology courses and understand what we do." And I think some of the things Isaac said about Matt and Trey earlier in that same interview really reinforces that at this point, there didn't seem to be any real beef between them. When asked,
I think it's a tough one, because I don't think there's any minority, I don't think there's any topic that hasn't been brought to light and made fun of in South Park. So I don't think any religion's safe. It's just their thing. It's what they do. I don't think any celebrity is safe. They just, it's just the sense of humor, I guess. They just rip into everything. So they're not going to not target Scientology, because there are very quirky things about Scientology, I think. And I think it would actually be kind of weird for South Park, for Matt and Trey to not pick up on those quirks and turn them into running jokes, because they do it with everything else.
about how Matt and Trey don't care who they offend, Isaac said this: "But that's their thing. Their success was built on that cutting edge stuff." So by all accounts, in January 2006, despite Isaac having left the show, this didn't seem to be some massive ongoing conflict. It was a dispute within the cast of the show and an amicable parting of ways. But then, coincidentally coming alongside the news that the Trapped in the Closet reruns had been pulled from the airwaves, came a new development.
There suddenly was this press release of Isaac saying that we were bigots and that that's why he quit.
Here was the statement issued by quote-unquote Isaac Hayes in
I mean, it might be naive or ignorant of me to say it, but I've never got the impression that Matt and Trey are bigots. I mean, I apologize if I'm wrong, and it might be naive, but I never got that.
March of 2006.
There is a place in this world for satire, but there is a time when satire ends and intolerance and bigotry towards religious beliefs of others begins. Religious beliefs are sacred to people, and at all times should be respected and honored. As a civil rights activist of the past 40 years, I cannot support a show that disrespects those beliefs and practices.
I'm sure you may have...
I think the upset is because what is being thought of as disrespect is more targeted not personally, but specifically to his religion. But if it's anyone else's religion, would he mind? I don't think anyone really gets any special treatment. No one gets away from South Park. They can make fun of everything. I do believe in, I don't know, like, I'm not going to say the sanctity of comedy, but I don't believe in taking things too seriously. And I think when you start censoring what people can say about certain topics, it's a very fine line. I know it can be a very controversial subject. But, I think a lot of people are quick to get offended by the likes of South Park when it is their own religion or it's their own beliefs, but don't really mind when it's anyone else's. So you can't really take that stance.
Realized that these may not have been Isaac's actual words, based on, well, all of the evidence, and that it was a kind of Scientology press tactic. Matt and Trey thought this as well.
It was just so ridiculous, and so we still don't even really think it was written by Isaac.
And I just have to wonder how they could have been this stupid. They basically ensured that this wouldn't be the last they heard from South Park. At a point where the beef was dead and buried and they were moving on, they just full-on taunted Matt and Trey.
All right, well, game on. And we just decided to basically respond to that whole thing and Chef's character and go basically do another dig at Scientology, which we wouldn't have even done except that they basically egged us on.
And
there are a handful of people in this world that I would say, don't poke that bear. You don't want to see the consequences. Matt and Trey are definitely two of those bears. You would not want to upset them. You'd never live it down.
So, a week before season 10
why would
began,
you do
they
that?
shifted gears and began to produce The Return of Chef, which would be Chef's final episode.
Previously on South Park.
You guys! Chef is going away!
I remember watching
this
this
is a dig at
episode when it first
Scientology,
aired and
not
seeing this gag
Isaac.
previously on segment, and genuinely wondering if I had missed an episode. I had heard about the Scientology drama, but hadn't really heard the extent of it in relation to Isaac at the time. But over the course of the episode, it became clear what this was about. The episode essentially shows the boys' excitement for Chef's return to South Park quickly diminish as they realize he isn't really the person they remember. In fact, Chef is saying some of the most horrendous things, stuff we know Chef would never say to children. I mean, a lot of which I can't even put in this video.
Oh, this is a dig at Scientology.
Let's all go home and make love.
No, Chef, we don't want to make love to you.
And despite this being an obviously petty clapback for the statement that was issued, you know, where they just make Chef completely ruin his own reputation, I do think the boys' mindset is pretty touching in this episode. They know that this can't be who Chef is or who Chef always was.
Which is what Matt and Trey instantly thought about a statement made by Isaac, which they were convinced it's not come from him. Oh, okay. It's smart.
Something must have happened to Chef while he was gone. Maybe he hit his head or got stuck in some quantum time vortex.
And as it turns out, everything Chef now believes was indoctrinated into him by the Super Adventure Club, which is just a club that wants to do terrible things to children around the world. Obviously, a not so subtle additional jab at Scientology. While the episode is clearly born out of anger and resentment for how everything went down, it also maintains its focus on the emotions of the boys, showing the lengths they would go to try and save their friend, the heartbreak they're feeling seeing him turn into somebody that is unrecognizable, and seeing him turn his back on them.
Chef, we love you.
I'm sorry, children.
And even though they give Chef one of the most unnecessarily brutal and violent deaths they've ever had on South Park, there is no way to walk away from the episode without feeling love for what Chef meant to the show, all because of Kyle's incredible speech at his funeral.
But we can't let the events of the last week take away the memories of how much Chef made us smile. I'm gonna remember Chef as the guy who gave us advice to live by.
I'm just really glad that despite how Matt and Trey felt in this moment, they chose to allow the characters to celebrate Chef for what he meant to them and what he meant to the show. And of course, take one last jab at the people who made him quit.
We shouldn't be mad at Chef for leaving us. We should be mad at that fruity little club for scrambling his brains.
And sadly, this line could not have been more fitting. A couple of years after these events, Hayes suffered a stroke and tragically died. And after this...
Oh, I didn't know that! Oh no! Oh, poor Isaac! I know established that I live under a rock, but I did not know that. Oh...
His son, Isaac Hayes III, revealed what really happened. Isaac Hayes did not quit South Park. Someone quit South Park for him. What happened was that in January 2006, my dad had a stroke and lost the ability to speak. He really didn't have that much comprehension, and he had to relearn to play the piano and a lot of different things. He was in no position to resign under his own knowledge. At the time, everybody around my father was involved in Scientology. His assistants, the core group of people. So someone quit South Park on Isaac Hayes' behalf. We don't know who.
That's
a chef person of color who the children had sing soul songs.
After Chef's sad departure and the show's touching tribute to the character at the end of Return of Chef, I had always wondered if that really would be the full-on end of Chef in South Park. At that point, it felt unimaginable that he wouldn't be a part of the show anymore. This was obviously a gag based around the, at the time, recently released Revenge of the Sith, but the final scene of the Return of Chef, where the Super Adventure Club salvages Chef's body and creates Darth Chef, was something that back then I fully expected to be followed up. This was maybe foolish thinking on my part, but I think it speaks to just how massive Chef's presence in South Park felt, even if his role had diminished in recent years. Chef has mostly gone entirely ignored since his departure in season 10, barely ever being referenced or mentioned. Darth Chef did appear in the group shot at the end of the title sequence for a while, but within the body of the show, I believe Chef has really only been referenced to like 2 times since the Return of Chef. One is a pretty small way when Randy gets into cooking and creme fraiche. He briefly takes Chef's role in the cafeteria, even wearing the same chef apron.
Hello there, children.
Oh, what?
How's it going?
No, Dad, no!
But the most substantial additional story of Chef after his death in South Park actually comes in the game South Park: The Stick of Truth. He isn't a big part of the majority of the game, with a brief appearance in the Hall of Honor, but oh boy does he play a role at the end of the game. After a UFO crashes in the town and leaks fluid that turns people into Nazi zombies, Clyde injects that fluid into Chef's coffin.
I'm gonna make love to you, woman.
Now this is technically a continuity issue given the Darth Chef ending of The Return of Chef. That episode even pointedly shows that they buried Chef's spatula, not his corpse. But they also made a point in Stick of Truth to make sure that the coffin was actually the same design. I do appreciate that Matt and Trey opted to give Chef at least some kind of role in their massive video game. And the way they use him is largely very similar to Return of Chef. A mishmash of old pieces of dialogue Frankenstein together, but rather than the whole Super Adventure Club influence, it's persistently interrupted by the Nazi zombieism. They hit the same sort of beats where while fighting him, you sort of start to bring him to his senses and his love for the children ends up breaking through the zombieism.
Children, everybody, I'm back.
And then, sadly, the fight ends with another horrifically brutal end for Chef. He cannot catch a break. And Chef...
Don't do that to Chef.
Chef wouldn't be referenced again until the introduction of PC Principal in season 19.
A chef, person of color, who the children had sing soul songs and who the children drove to kill himself.
No, he got brainwashed by a coach.
I actually think that this is a
Just say it as it is,
really
Buzz.
interesting piece of dialogue. Obviously, the whole bit with PC Principal is that he is aggressively PC, which leads him to often look past and or miss the reality of certain situations. And here he is basically saying Chef's inclusion in South Park was problematic, which is incredibly ironic because as we've explored across this entire video, despite his origins as a one-note stereotype, Chef evolved and grew into one of the most important characters in the entire show. The one person that the kids could count on when they needed an adult, the buffer between the adult world and the kid world, the only real person who would so fearlessly protect them. And since Chef left the show, while plenty of other adult characters have risen to prominence like Randy or PC Principal himself, none of these characters are particularly trustworthy adults who have the kids' best interests at heart. After Chef's death, the four boys have had to grow up pretty fast. Where in older South Park they would go to Chef and ask him for advice because they were kids, the newer South Park format sort of forces them to just learn about and understand these more adult ideas right off the bat. It doesn't allow them to just be kids anymore. I wish South Park had managed to bring in a replacement for Chef's role in the show as an adult who helps the kids move through some of the more adult storylines without forcing them to be more adult themselves. And obviously that's just the way the show has evolved, and that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Most of my favorite episodes of the entire series came after Chef's death, but it would have been cool if they managed to introduce a new character in that same vein. This pitch is overly sentimental for sure, but Chef obviously slept around. It wouldn't be shocking if he had an older kid out there, maybe one who could come to town to learn about his father and sticks around after to help out. Get someone with a great voice to play him, like an Isaac Hayes III type? No, very sentimental wishful thinking. Isaac Hayes and Chef were an absolutely massive part of the show's growth and success, and though the show has continued for 15 plus years without him, it has never felt like the show didn't need him. He was a vital ingredient to those first 10 years, and though his exit from the show was dramatic and incredibly sad, I do think that the final line ever spoken by Isaac in the series is fitting.
I'm alive!
Though Chef and Isaac have passed on, they are still alive through South Park, through some of the best episodes of the show and the fondest memories of the fans who love him. And no fruity club or dramatic breakup or even death can change that.
And in the end, I know that somewhere out there, there's the good part of Chef that's still alive in us all.
Aww.
Johnny
Two Cellos. I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps
I love the sentiment from that final episode where we see Chef. I think that's really, really sweet. I think the sentiment actually runs deeper because it sounds like Matt and Trey were quite close to him. I don't know how I feel about having a Chef replacement. I feel like they just couldn't do it. Well, just they didn't want to do it. And that's okay. But I love the idea that was posed here about maybe him having a son that arrives in South Park and wants to find out a bit more about his dad. I think that's a wicked idea. I'd love to see that. It's I can't believe the statement that his son came out and to say that it absolutely wasn't Isaac that made those comments. And following his stroke, it was actually people surrounding him, people around him that were obviously Scientologists as well, that made the decision to leave South Park. That's awful. How can you take that responsibility and make those decisions for him? Especially when there's your own agenda there. You're pushing your own agenda. I don't like that. I think that's awful. So, you know, I think it's brilliant that his son came forward to say this. I wonder if Matt and Trey finished the Goodbye to Chef episode, and then maybe how did they feel about that statement? No. It's so sad. I think Chef is definitely a fan favorite, isn't he? He's such an iconic character of South Park. There would be, that might be a controversial statement. I don't think South Park would be what it is without Isaac Hayes. I don't think it would be as big and as, I don't know, as great as what it is without Chef. What do you think, guys? Let me know. Anyway, my lovelies, I hope you enjoyed watching along with me. It's very, very interesting. It's so very sad about Isaac. Poor Isaac Hayes. I didn't even know that he'd passed away. That's awful. But yes, very, very interesting episode. So I hope you enjoyed watching along with me. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.